I used to play Super Mario Galaxy a lot as a kid. For the longest time, if you asked me, that was my favorite game. There was something about it that hit on that feeling of whimsy and wonder. One thing I really remember from playing Galaxy is just how long it took for me to finish the very first level. See, you can only save the game after that level, and I kept trying to get through it. But man, I just never could. I don't know how much time really passed, but there were seemingly multiple weeks, if not months, where I would just play that first level over and over again, trying to beat it. And I was so excited when I finally made it.
To tell you the truth, I was never very good at games. I'm still not. Gosh, just ask my friends. Also, I don't have a clip-on mic, so I'm faking this audio in post.
I really like space. I like that somber feeling of total, overwhelming beauty and quiet alongside it. To me, the very idea of space feels like an adventure through a sort of longing isolation. Somehow, despite space making things feel so much bigger, it also feels more personal, more encompassing. In fact, I like space so much, and Super Mario Galaxy to boot, that I released a game about adventuring in space through a lonely, isolated planet. That feeling of being alone, it feels more potent out there. To tell you the truth, I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's just that feeling of longing for something new, or blindly making our way through the unfamiliar. When our everyday becomes so routine, space feels like a rest. Something epic because it's an adventure, but something peaceful because it's so detached from the busy world we have. But what also strikes me is that feeling of nostalgia, that even thinking about Super Mario Galaxy, that game I played as a kid, makes me feel that same sense of wonder today. Even as I'm writing this, I'm getting that floaty feeling, not just from the anti-gravity, but from thinking about that time I played Super Mario Galaxy as a kid. Being a kid and having moved now to Brazil, I was in my own sort of new world. And through that adventure, I got to meet a lot of people who really meant a lot to me. Essentially, Super Mario Galaxy reminds me of my childhood, and it makes me feel that sense of whimsy and wonder, the imaginative nature of growing up. For good and bad, we're impressionable, we're imaginative, and that imagination and the friends we share that with, that's really pivotal. And that's made me wonder, in a new sort of way. I've been feeling this new sense of self recently, like I've been finding my own footing and learning to really love the world around me, feeling very grateful to be where I am. And when I look back, it's a world far different than I fantasized as a kid, and a self far different than I ever envisioned. So I've been wondering about that feeling of wonder I have for that time in my life. Knowing what I once or envisioned of myself is far detached from something that I once or even am now. Make no mistake, I'm not surprised by the change in my own life. I'm not confused by the dissonance here. I'm just learning to appreciate nostalgia in a different way, because the way that I've been experiencing it has been changing. First, let's define nostalgia. According to the Merriam-Webster, nostalgia is a wistful or excessively sentimental yearning for a return to, or of some past period of irrecoverable condition. Okay, so it looks like we're going to need to come up with our own definition of nostalgia. Also, this isn't the Merriam-Webster, this is actually the Beginner's Bible. Real quick, I need to interrupt your regularly scheduled Jenna, because when I was writing this, I grabbed my stuffed axolotl, and its tail perfectly hit the enter button to create this paragraph. So anyway, you can thank Axel here for this brief interruption. Anyway, we need to go define nostalgia. The reason I'm hesitant to any definition of nostalgia that alludes to going back is that I think we can feel heartwarmed by what's happened in our past while still looking to the future. I think nostalgia is more of an appreciation for what came before than it is a desire to return to it. But at the same time, nostalgia is a heartwarming feeling and bittersweet feeling too. Because not only are we appreciating what came before, and despite the fact that we may not want to go back, we still feel a vague sense of sadness recognizing how we have passed that point. Even if we don't want to return to it, we can feel a sort of somber appreciation for the moments in our life that really mean a lot to us. Those are the moments that in some way lead to who we are now. The irony, of course, being that that moment led to our now, even if our now is far detached from what we envisioned or what we even hoped for. The feeling of connection that young Jenna had, that despite the unfamiliar, despite not knowing, I was with people I really truly cared about, and they cared about me in return. I learned at a very young age that I don't want to live in isolation. That close personal relationship that I felt was vital. I understood how good a friendship can feel, and those are the things I still feel today. I've changed. The world has changed. But the same feeling that made young Jenna happy is still what makes me happy now. As a matter of fact, I don't think sadness is the right word for how we feel about the past when we're considering nostalgia. I think what we're feeling is really distance. Thinking about a way back time makes us consider the time in between. I'm not sad that those times playing Galaxy as a kid are gone. I'm just starting to perceive that distance even more. I feel disconnected from young Jenna, and honestly, in a way that feels sort of empowering. I am, as many of us are, more attuned to myself than I was as a kid, as I'm finding a life for myself that means a lot to who I am now. I'm coming to really appreciate the change that's come in my life, and I think that's a part of it too.
The point is, change is really scary.
Especially when we get caught up in a routine, change is something quite intimidating. Even when we're in a bad routine and a good change comes, sometimes it's still overwhelming. I think that what really makes change impactful isn't what was or what will be, but the literal fact there was one thing and now that thing is different. That's what gets me, at least. And looking back to our childhood is like surfing a time-traveling ocean of change.
Speaking of ocean and change, these coins are from the Pond and Bass Pro Shop.
Point is, things change. Our tastes change. Our friends can change. Our entire world can be unrecognizable after just a few years. I mean, I didn't even like some of the movies I loved a few years ago. So when we're thinking about nostalgia, at least from the standpoint of a game, it sort of feels like a gamble. Will we feel the same wave of magic we did as a kid, or will the game just seem old? Even for me, I played Winter Sports The Ultimate Challenge as a kid. I loved it! And now I'll wager a guess that Winter Sports The Ultimate Challenge is a pretty bad game, actually. Well, maybe, I don't actually know. But still, I feel some sort of connection to it. Like, even if I don't want to play it again, it feels vaguely important to me. It's still special. Oh, and there was one time I lost my copy of Club Penguin Herbert's Revenge on an airplane. Now, even just looking at that title, you'd realize that this is not the first game in the series, but it was the first and only game I played in the series. And let me tell you, even if I didn't really know what was going on, I loved this game. I would stay up all night panicked because all the puffles got stolen. I would write stories about stolen Puffles. I thought that twist was so good, it got me all riled up. I never finished the game, and I don't really want to, but you better believe I bought myself a copy of the game a few years ago. I don't want to play it, but owning it feels like I'm claiming the adventures I had as a kid, if that makes any sense at all. And that's what gets me about nostalgia. It's a sort of appreciation. It's like tipping your hat and going, yeah, all those small things added up. Change doesn't exist from nothing. It's an additive experience we have. So, even though I'm different than who I was back then, I'm not disassociated with who I was. Life tends to add, not replace. You know how the Wii was just randomly louder than everything else on the TV? Well, some nights when I was going to bed, I'd hear the Mario Kart Wii intro blast from the TV, and that would be my cue to get up out of bed and go out, even if I never ended up playing. I'm gonna go play Mario Kart now. I'm playing Mario Kart now. I don't have Mario Kart Wii, so just imagine that this is a little visually uglier. Speaking of uglier, did you see that PlayStation 5 footage during the PlayStation 5 Pro announcement a few months ago? Just yuck. Whatever nostalgia is, that youthful connection is bound to make things feel pretty special. Like that game is a constant you've had through your life. And that's pretty cool to think about, that I've had Super Mario Galaxy on my game shelf basically my entire life. And like I said, approximately 7 minutes and 4 seconds ago, I don't know if that's true or not, that's just a guess. How close am I though? I feel like I'm pretty close, right? Well, at any rate, for the longest time, I would have told you that Super Mario Galaxy was my absolute favorite game. When I thought about the game, I thought about how it felt to jump into a new world and make new friends. And before I say that it's not my favorite game anymore, can we just pause for a second? Honestly, ranking favorite games can be pretty broad and pretty rigid. Every game experience is different, and having that variety is what makes all those games so special. All those different experiences can mean something different to you, satiate a different mood. I love that lonely feeling in Breath of the Wild, that you're at the will of this huge and desecrated world. A world that, mind you, you're out of place in, having slept for 100 years. And now you're on a solo quest, all your friends gone, you're alone, and you're on a journey to save the kingdom. And in Stardew Valley, that sense of being immersed in a new community, finding your footing with people who have already established their lives in this small town, you feel out of place, a bit isolated. As you begin to make connections and integrate with this place and all the people there. Stardew Valley taught me a lot about what friendship can look like. And Super Mario Galaxy hits on that somber feeling of being in this grand universe. A universe that's both exciting and adventurous, but also really quiet and alone. Rosalina's story about losing the people she was close with and finding this new role, finding your place in the universe. All three of these games hit on a sense of isolation in a unique and very compelling way. I think it's a theme that really resonates with me, and all those games are pretty special. I'm grateful that even as I've gotten older, there are still games that feel really special. I might not play games very often anymore, but they're still special to me, and those experiences still resonate. There are games that feel as special as Super Mario Galaxy felt to me. So when we're thinking about nostalgia, what gives? It's hard to really justify a feeling of nostalgia when Breath of the Wild only came out 7 years ago. Well, when you think about it, that's a lot of time. Yeah, that's a while, actually. Change is pretty scary, but I think that's where a feeling of nostalgia really comes in. We're appreciating all the experiences we've had through change as we change. And hey, when we're looking for stability, change can feel pretty scary. The truth is, life doesn't really stagnate, and that is really scary, especially when we feel content where we are, or when we're overwhelmed by too much change all at once, just looking for consistency. But it's also one of the exciting things about life. There's always something new on the horizon. And with every new thing, I think it's pretty cool that we can pick up the controller, press A, and feel that same happiness again.